Apawu has said that he was handcuffed and pushed out of his office.
He rather called police reinforcement and got the team that went to mitigate the event in Kumasi, and they were handcuffed. It is a team from Accra which was handcuffed, and not Apawu.
He wasn't handcuffed?
Apawu wasn't handcuffed.
He wasn't assaulted?
He rather called the police commander, regional commander, to come. And they came and arrested the team that we have sent to Accra. But do you know what? The bottom line of it all is that Apawu had a contract with National Security.
Okay.
And I had not even assumed office. And for 4 years, he was the regional liaison officer for National Security. His term of office or his contract expired. And it was not renewed. I understand that it was not renewed because of non-performance and because of his own criminal activities.
You accuse him of engaging in criminal activities? Like what, sir?
Like what, sir? What are some of the things that you picked up as an intelligent chief?
That is it.
But finally, you
how
say
are you addressing these issues?
These issues are being investigated. A team and a committee has been set up, to investigate these
But finally, from you say you've transferred the guys to Accra, essentially to do what? To prosecute them?
The guys
who said...
you mentioned that a team from Accra came and they picked up
he had no locus to be in the office because a new officer had been appointed and he should have handed over to the officer. He says he won't hand over.
All right.
And so that is why a team was sent to Accra to go and mitigate and facilitate the handing and taking over process.
So a number of issues he addresses. The issues about assault and being handcuffed and being hit with the butt of the gun, all that discounted. He's also accused him of engaging in criminal activities. Issues about non-performance also came up, the reason why his contract was not renewed, and that he also refused to hand over his question. He's been questioning his locus of being in office. We'll be getting some reaction from DCOP Apawu, but of course, you heard him also mention that Mr. Apawu refused to leave his post when his term of office expired, and that he was not reappointed because of non-performance, like I put it. But last night on PM Express, Mr. Apawu told my colleague Evans Mensah that the president had asked him to return to his office. This was after that incident last week.
Well, I went to the office the next day, but I'm not in Kumasi now.
Have you, when you return to Kumasi, you intend to go back to your office and work?
Certainly, I'll have to be there because I must be seen in the office. Because His Excellency the President, when I called, I went to him. He told me to go and work because he wasn't bringing anybody there at the time. He said I should go and work and I will hear from him. So that's exactly what I'm going to do.
So just to clarify, you've been to meet the President after this incident?
Well, I wanted to see him on Friday, but he was very busy. I understood him. He was traveling on Sunday. So he had to do a lot of things himself, and I never bothered him with the issue again.
But you clarified that you have a direct instruction from the President or the Presidency to go and work.
He told me, I saw him when I heard that there were rumors in the city that Wudukunsing and the other guys I mentioned, the Delta Force guys, were trying to impose somebody on me at the time. So even I called Wudukunsing himself and told him about this, and I will talk about that later.
Okay.
So that's DCOP Apawu speaking to Evans Mensah on PM Express last night, mentioning that the president had asked him to go back and work even after that incident. But my colleague Parker Wilson was among journalists who were interacting with the National Security Coordinator, Major General Francis Eduamanfo, retired. A few issues that we need clarity to. Parker joins us on the phone. Parker, I know that you sought further clarity on what criminal activities it is that DCOP Apawu had engaged in. What exactly did he say?
Well, so first of all, he mentioned to me that these are matters of national security And as a matter of fact, he wouldn't want to make them public. But of course, his actions and conduct in the Ashanti region is embarrassing the government. And again, made the point that there were specific issues that the national security, as I speak to you, has put together a team to investigate the activities of Mr. Pariado.
Well, issues about his non-performance, the reason why his contract was not renewed. Did he give you further understanding of what exactly amounted
for him,
to that?
he said he's been briefed that the Ashanti Regional National Security Coordinator was not performing, and that is why his contract was not renewed by the president. And so he's occupying the position illegally. As to the real reasons to the performance of DCOP or Pariado, he was unable to specifically point out to me real reasons why he believes that he was not performing. But for him, as I mentioned, the embarrassment causing government, and of course some criminal activities he talks about. And in fact, Emefa, I was trying to check with my sources around and within national security architecture. And they are telling me that it's linked to illegal mining. They believe that his fight hasn't really been up to scratch, and it's the reason that they are asking that he should retire and get a new person appointed to handle issues within the Ashanti region. And so this could be some of the reasons for his non-performance or the reason he's not performing in the Ashanti region by letting the government down and Akufo-Addo as well. So they have appointed a new person to take his place, and yet Mr. Pariado doesn't want to exit even after his contract was terminated by the president.
Well, in that interaction also, you know, the issues about those 7 men that stormed the offices of DCOP or Pariado. Some, of course, Mr. Pariado himself alluded to the fact that he knows some of them who are supposed to be members of the supposed to be disbanded group, the Delta Force. Did we see clarity from the National Security Coordinator whether indeed they are now his men, they work under the National Security? Did that come up? Did you get clarity to that?
Emefa, yes, that was clear. It was established that these individuals are not members of the NPP vigilante group, but rather national security operatives. In fact, these guys, we are told that they were the ones supposed to resolve the impasse between Mr. Pariado and the new appointed national security officer for the Ashanti region. And because of a quote, the intransigence of Pariado is the reason they deployed the men from Accra. So the men are not even in Ashanti region or Kumasi, but rather were detailed from the national headquarters or the national security office here in Accra to Kumasi to resolve the matter. Unfortunately, when they got to the office of Mr. Pariado, we are told that he called the regional, Mr. Pariado called the regional commander, and they rather arrested these men who had come to rather resolve the issue. And so these men, we can say for a fact that are not members of the NPP vigilante group, but rather national security operatives.
So then, what then becomes of the investigation? Because we know that DCOP or Pariado reported this incident to the police in the region. So now that it's been established that they are indeed men with the national security and that they've been asked to come to Accra for further investigation, did they give us an update on what exactly has become of that investigation?
Well, I said the matter is still under investigation. It happened last Tuesday. And so they are trying to comb all the areas in this matter to understand what really happened, because there's been some conflicting report as to whether indeed Mr. Pariado was assaulted by the national security operatives or otherwise. So investigations are ongoing. Hopefully next week we are told that we'll get some updates on this matter. But essentially, we are told that the details of the issues itself will not be made public because it's a matter of national security.
Okay, very well then. That's my colleague, Kwesi Parker Wilson, and he's been encountering the National Security Coordinator, Major General Francis Edu Amanfo, retired, and he's been defending the forcible removal of the Ashanti Regional Security Coordinator, DCOP Ayenso Pariado. He's been recounting his torturous ordeal in the hands of these men who were supposed to be from National Security, which we're being told now by Major General Francis Kwasi Duamanfo, retired, that they had actually deployed them to go and forcibly remove DCOP Opariado from office because he had no locus at the time. His contract was not renewed because of non-performance, and then also raising issues about him engaging in criminal activities. Details he would not give, but mentioned that he's been engaging in criminal activities, reason why he's been removed from office. And then also his claims of assault and then the AK-47 bats being used on him and being handcuffed, all that has been discounted. He mentioned that he refused to hand over when in fact he had been asked to do so, even though he tells us just last night that the president had asked him to go back to work even after the incident. So all these issues, we need some clarity on it, but we're told also that the police is currently investigating that issue. It's been tough reaching the Ashanti Regional Police, but my colleague Erastus Asaridonko joins us shortly with more. Also tonight, the NPP has been wading into the incident, and they've been accusing the former National Security Coordinator of becoming an embarrassment to the state and, of course, to himself as well. We'll hear from Yaobabien Samwa, the Director of Communications at the NPP, shortly. But I'll take you live to Kumasi now, where my colleague Erastus Asaridonko joins us on the line. Erastus, so I must admit how tough it's been getting the Ashanti Regional Police from Accra here. I hope it's been easy for you since you're close. Please update us if you have the latest on that investigation.
Well, it's also difficult getting the police in Kumasi. It looks like it's an area that many of the officers do not want to tread, and they will prefer that they do their investigations behind the scenes and before they come out. But then I'm picking information, snippets of information from different quarters when it comes to what happened to, or is alleged to have happened to DCOP Opariado. What I'm learning is that an appointment was made by the president to succeed DCOP Opariado in the person of one Colonel Atta. I'm told that Colonel Atta was operating from the Deputy Minister's office in Kumasi because, according to my sources, the regional minister was looking for Mr. Opariado to hand him a letter indicating that his service was no longer needed. But then he could not find him. And when finally he was able to serve him with a letter, according to my sources, Mr. Opariado indicated that his name, DCOP Ayinsu Opariado, there was one of them which has been omitted from the said letter, and so he did not recognize the content of the letter. And it was after this that the men were supposedly sent to evacuate him from that particular office. It's not clear at the moment who sent them. But I've been speaking with some influential people within the groupings of the NPP, i.e. Delta Force, Invisible Forces. There's one person they do respect a lot, and I've been speaking with him. We'll get a full interview for Newsnight. But he is saying that he doesn't support in any way what the boys did. And even if it should happen under a different administration, it should be condemned in no uncertain terms. He says that it is not something that he supports, or members of the Delta Force support, that these men should go and evacuate somebody who has been appointed by the president. He believes that if the president appointed DCOP Opariado and he refuses to leave despite a letter served him, it is not the duty of anybody outside the realm of the structures for national security to go in there and force him out. He believes that there are structures in place for such things, and so the president himself should have found a way through those structures to remove him. And so he condemns it. He's also condemning the fact that DCOP Opariado is also saying that those who came to his office were members of the Delta Force. He says, per his information and the status quo, those groupings have been disbanded. And the boys who are involved, whom he knows, have all dispersed. Some have gone into national security apparatus, some are hanging around, some are doing other things. And so currently if you say Delta Force, there's no such thing as Delta Force as a group, and that the boys went in there to do what they did on their own volition. And so that point should be made clear.
So he admits to you that some of his men or his colleagues have now been co-opted, or they are in the national security now as we speak, he says.
Yes, he does not even want to be, no more to be recognized as a godfather for them, though previously he told me that, yes, he served as a role model for them. He guided them from such things. He does not support the kind of things that they do, the lawlessness, and so he doesn't want to be associated even by calling him the godfather for the two groups anymore, because those groups have been disbanded. He's sorry that this Emefa Apawu will, lay claim that they were Delta Force members, because he knows very well that they do not exist. He also said in that interview that this Emefa Apawu knows these people. He has worked with some of them before, and he knows that currently they are not members of the Delta Force group. So for that one, he does not agree with him.
So he says he knows, just a quick clarity, Rasta. So he tells you that Emefa Apawu knows these people, who worked with them before. In what capacity? How does he know them?
Well, he says that he assigns them roles. He has been working with them before, and so he himself is surprised that the boys went in there to do that. I asked him whether he knows who sent them. He said, well, he doesn't know who sent them, but whoever sent them should be ashamed of himself and should learn that these things do not augur well, one, for the NPP party, for the government of the day. The president himself does not support these things, and so people should stop using those boys from Delta Force and Invisible Forces to perceive their own parochial interest.
Okay.
If there is somebody to be evacuated, they should use the structures rather than the boys from the Zongos.
Well, Erastus, we'll bring you more of that. Also, we get to speak to you more on Newsnight on this particular developing issue. Well, whilst in Kumasi, some residents have also been raising concerns about this development. Erastus has been interacting with them. We can listen.
On the lawlessness that keeps increasing. It's a worrying trend for most people. If you talk to people, people are really concerned because it seems nothing is being done. These people can do whatever they want and go scot-free. They get arrested, they are discharged, and their cases never see the light of day. So they've been emboldened over the period of time, and it's getting worse by the day.
What has happened to Emefa Apawu is very distasteful, to say the least. And this is exactly what happens when unqualified party members are recruited into security service. And it's time the president does something about these developments until they get out of hand.
It doesn't come as a surprise to many, simply because this group, they did a similar thing in 2017, and they've done it again in 2021. I mean, they are just unstoppable. Since we know that it is a group that is affiliated to the MPP, I think that whenever the MPP is touting its achievement, they should include this. They should include the activities and the operations of this Delta Force group as one of the legacies of the Akufo-Addo government.
Ghana has to be careful. We are not safe. Even if whole DCOP has encountered such a problem or has gone through this ordeal, and then nobody is saying anything, how much more me, a civilian like me?
Some residents of the Ashanti region, well, tonight the NPP has also been wading into the incident. They are accusing the former National Security Coordinator of the region, Emefa Apawu, of becoming an embarrassment to the state and himself. Listen to Yawabinye Samwa, Director of Communications of the party.
Since the passage of the Vigilantism Act, there is nothing like Delta Force in our system. It's been disbanded. Whoever had control of it has disbanded it, and it doesn't exist. Now, the Ashanti Regional Security Coordinator, the gentleman who is the subject of this matter, ought to have left his office long before. His contract has expired. He hasn't responded to any of the entreaties from his headquarters to move on. Not having responded, headquarters felt obliged to go and enforce his removal. Unfortunately, he didn't take kindly to it. He chose a very loud way of going about it, and it has embarrassed him. I think he should be embarrassed that this incident has happened. There's no way he can come out of this incident smelling good, because he has no basis for what he did. which is to oppose his office, to try and maintain himself in an office where his welcome had expired by law. Nobody who went there is from any other organization but the state. I want to make that very, very clear. Unfortunately, he didn't respond well to them, and it has led to this public situation that we have. It's unfortunate, but the embarrassment belongs to him. The embarrassment doesn't belong to the state. The embarrassment belongs to him because he chose to make a spectacle of himself when he ought to have left office at the right time.
But the approach, people have criticized the approach. Couldn't there be a better approach?
I like democratic growth. What is democratic growth? We learn from all that happens. Here is somebody who officially has received letters, officially has had correspondence, verbal as well, to leave office, and has refused flatly. Here is somebody who ought perhaps, if he was not satisfied, to have come to his headquarters to inquire, or to wherever he felt he drew his strength from, to inquire about his status. He didn't. Now here is that same person who is in office and has resisted all formal means of getting rid of, to the point where now the state has to use minimum force. You know, the state is empowered to use minimum force to enforce the law. The state has to use minimum force to enforce the law. The state comes into your office and you are the first one to react. You are not polite to the state, and then you turn around and say the state was impolite to you. If he had allowed the space, it was a very simple process. All this would not have happened. Whatever has happened is because the gentleman did not allow the formal processes to go on. He did not allow the space. So at the point where they arrived, there was no other way. Because they didn't go there violently, but he provoked the violence. Whatever his story is, trying to create an impression that he is angelic and ought to come out as a hero. The bottom line is that he is no hero because he didn't have a right to what he was doing. He is no hero because he didn't deserve to put all of us in that embarrassment when he had no legal rights. He ought not to have done what he did.
So, are you confirming that he alleges to be part of the Delta Force?
There is no Delta Force. Nobody has absorbed anybody. The state security agencies have a right to recruit persons, and they do recruit persons. They have their own methods of recruitment. He chooses to use the word Delta Force, and he's supposed to be a state official. He should know that the state banned paramilitary and out-of-state organizations a couple of years ago. He should know. If he claims to be a public official, he should know this for a fact. So how come he is now talking about Delta Force? He's trying to puff himself up.
He mentioned some names.
If I mention your name now as a media terrorist, will you accept it? It's a presumption. He mentioned names. So because he mentioned names, we should take it that those names are Delta Force. What is Delta Force? It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. It's a presumption. It's a rebuttable presumption. He mentions names and that's final. So, okay, I'll start mentioning names and ascribing funny things to those names. He is behaving badly, to put it bluntly. He is behaving badly. He is being an embarrassment to himself and to the state, which has served him by keeping him in office till where he has reached. The state has served him. He should honor the state by retreating honorably. He should honor the state by retreating honorably. The way he's going is an embarrassment to himself and the state.
That's the Director of Communications for the NPP, Yaobua, being somewhere there interacting with the media after that press conference held by the party. And we've been hearing from the National Security Coordinator tonight, Major General Francis Edu Amanfo, retired, defending the forcible removal of the Ashanti Regional Security Liaison Officer, DCOP Ayenso Pariado. He's unavailable right now to respond to the claims of criminality leveled against him, and then issues about his non-performance being the reason why his contract was not renewed, amongst others. As and when he's prepared to do so, we'll bring that to you. That's it for Top Story, brought to you by Gassem, the nation builder, and Vodafone. The future is exciting. Ready? We're back with Newsnight